lens right here. This is the XF 23mm F1.4 WR LM. I've been shooting with this lens since it came out, which was around 2 years ago, and I didn't own it until sometimes last year. And since then, I've been taking it around places here in Europe, shot around here in the beautiful Algarve, and I just want to share my long-term review. It's been a long time now since I own this lens and the XF 33mm f1.4. Some people are going to ask if I regret owning both of these lenses because they are sort of close to each other in focal length, and some people don't feel the need to own both of these lenses. Just stick around to the end and you'll get my answers. Let's get started. I now enjoy this lens a lot. Ever since moving here, I find myself using the 23mm focal length more than I do the 33, just because everything is so different here in Europe. There's just so many different architecture here, so I need something wide to capture all that I am seeing, and I believe that the 23mm does that for me. I know people are saying to get like the 18mm f1.4, and people say that is an incredible lens as well, but that focal length does not really vibe with me. I really like the 35mm full frame equivalent. Now, as I walk around the town and the cities with this lens and my X-T5, I do like the size of this combo. I know that it's still bigger than the f2 lenses. However, because of my experience with full frame cameras and full frame lenses, I still find this lens to be small in the grand scheme of things. So honestly, I don't mind the weight and size attached to the X-T5. Now, traveling to London this past winter holiday, it was raining every day while I was there, and this is where the weather resistant came in handy. When I took the X-T5 with this lens out, I was very confident that this light drizzle won't affect the lens at all, and it held up great. I was able to take pictures in the rain and got myself and my gear wet, but we all survived. Now, one of the reasons why I like this lens so much is because of its image quality. I feel this is one of the sharpest lenses that Fujifilm has ever made for the X-mount system. It can resolve the 40 megapixel sensor quite well, and I am happy with the brilliant image rendering. The images are sharp, there's a crisp to the image that I really like. It does look a bit more clinical than the original 23mm f1.4, where I feel that lens has a bit more character that some people may enjoy. But saying that, I don't see a problem with this lens because it helps with my vision and it sparks my creativity whenever I'm using it. When I travel, I use it as a travel lens. I use it as a street photography lens, and I find it to be great in that situation. And another thing I like about this lens is the f1.4. The ability to open your aperture to its widest is very important to me. Not only is it to achieve background blur, the bokeh, but also it's great for low light photography. And these are the two things that I enjoy doing a lot in my photography. Sometimes I like bokeh and sometimes I like low light stuff. Now, I've used this lens last year in Toronto where it was completely light nighttime outside, and I was just happy that this was an f1.4 lens instead of the f2. It just allows in a little bit more light, and I was hit with a bit of nostalgia because during the pandemic era where everybody stayed inside, I was out at night just walking the empty streets downtown Toronto with my friend Jake, just taking photos of the night and around the city. So when I use a lens and I can be reminded of those good old days again, I do grow an attachment to the lens, as cheesy as it sounds. The f1.4 did really help with my nighttime shoot in Toronto a year ago because of its light gathering capability. Now, I was using my X106 the other day, and I just went out during the evenings to eat at some food trucks around here, right? It was getting dark, and the f2 lens wasn't enough. And yes, you can use a denoising program to get rid of that noise from the high ISO. But again, that's just another step to add to your workflow, and some people may not want that. So the f1.4 has been very clutch in that situation. Another reason why I like this lens so much is because it allows me to be creative. Several years ago, I did not understand this focal length one bit. I actually wrote it off and said it's not for me. But then I got the OG 23mm f1.4 to review, and I wanted to give it a fair shot. And ever since reviewing that lens, I've been in love with this focal length because it just makes me think about composition differently. Having the wider field of view means you have to fit more into your frame. But the thing about that is it can get a bit messy. So if you don't know what to fit in or what to omit, it's going to give you a hard time. But with me, and this is something that you don't often have to worry about with something like the XF 35mm f1.4 or the XF 56mm f1.2, because they are a bit tighter than this lens. So you can just use the other lens and just fill the frame with the subject, and it would just look great. I find with this lens, I get more excited for a photo when I nail the shot than the other lenses that I've used. When I'm out there in the city streets, I am constantly analyzing the situation, looking around for available lighting, looking at the scene, and look for interesting backdrops to put my subjects in. And this is where I feel more creatively fulfilled. And like I said in previous videos, the more great shots I get with the lens, the more sentimental I get, and the more attached I get to the lens, and the more excited I get whenever I go out and use that lens again. I just know that if I have this lens on my camera, I will get something good by the end of the day. And I absolutely love that, and I love this lens. And when it comes to shooting portraits between the 23mm lens versus something like the 56mm f1.2, I find it much more challenging with the 23mm, and it's much more rewarding. The 56 is great, and you can get a great look instantly with the compression combined with the f1.2. It's going to take a gorgeous photo regardless. And to me, it kind of feels too easy in a sense. Whenever I'm using the 23mm f1.4, I'm much more methodical and I think differently. It puts me in a creative space, it puts me in a zone, and it's one of the reasons why I enjoy shooting with this lens so much. So, enough good things about the lens. Are there any problems with this lens? Now, some of you guys may find that it's big coming from the f2 lenses. And another thing that I found is I find this lens to be quite expensive for what it is. There are other alternatives out there like the Sigma 23mm f1.4 or the Viltrox 27mm f1.2 that can probably provide a similar image quality at a much more affordable price, especially the Viltrox. Even though it's like 5mm more, you're basically getting a sharp image for like maybe half the price, and it's so good, that lens. So do I regret buying this lens even though I have something like the 33mm f1.4? Absolutely not. They do different things for me. If I want a classic mid telephoto look and get some decent compression and bokeh, I'll take the 33mm f1.4. If I want to go a bit wider, be a bit more creative, do some environmental portraits, I'll take the XF 23mm f1.4 WR LM. But that's just me though. The 23mm f1.4 has become one of my favorite lenses that I've owned, and it's one of the sharpest lenses from Fujifilm that I've ever used. And it's one of the lenses that I have fun with the most as well. So this has been my long-term review of my XF 23mm f1.4 WR LM. If you guys are interested in this lens, I'll leave the links down in the description below. But what are your thoughts on this lens? Do you guys have this lens? What is your experience? Do let me know in the comment section below. And consider liking and subscribing for more Fujifilm content. And thanks so much.